The stars stretched endlessly across the dark expanse, shimmering like a sea of forgotten dreams. The silence of space was absolute, and yet within the vast loneliness a ship drifted, its hull bearing the scars of battles won and lost, its name etched along the side, barely legible through the carbon scoring and time-worn paint. The celestial dawn moved with the slow determination of a wanderer without a home, its crew a collection of souls bound together by fate, necessity, and the cruel hand of destiny. Among them was a girl unlike any other. Her skin bore a faint iridescence, shifting between hues like an oil slick, her eyes a bottomless void that reflected the cosmos itself, and her breath carried the scent of distant worlds forgotten in the annals of history. She was known only as Vena, and her presence alone could inspire both awe and terror. Her bite was legendary, not in the way of whispered myths or exaggerated tales, but in the undeniable reality that anything she sank her fangs into would wither, die, and be reduced to dust. No armor, no shielding, no living being, no constructive flesh or metal could resist the consuming poison that dripped from her elongated canines, a weapon woven into her very existence, a curse she never asked for yet could never escape. She was both feared and revered, kept at arm's length even by those who called her crewmate. They knew what she could do, they knew what had happened before, they knew better than to test the limits of her nature, and so Vena walked alone among them, a ghost in the halls of the celestial dawn, her steps soundless, her movements calculated, her fate entwined with the endless journey through the void. Yet there was one who did not recoil in fear, one who met her gaze and did not shudder, one who stood at the threshold of death and did not step back. His name was Kale, a man who had known war and loss in equal measure, a man whose scars ran deeper than flesh, and whose soul had long since been forged in the crucible of suffering. He was not immune to fear, but he did not let it dictate his actions. And when he looked at Vena, he did not see a monster, he saw someone like him, someone cast adrift by the cruelty of existence, someone who bore a burden that could never be set down. He did not flinch when she passed, he did not avoid her shadow, he did not whisper behind her back, he simply acknowledged her as she was, and that was something no one else had ever done. It was not a love story, not yet, not then. It was understanding, unspoken and unbreakable, a thread of connection woven through the vast emptiness of space, and though Vena did not say it, she felt it deep within her core, the strange warmth of being seen, of being known, of being something more than a force of destruction. She did not dare to hope, but the ember had been lit, and whether she wished it or not, it would not be so easily extinguished. The celestial dawn continued its endless voyage, seeking fortune or escape in the scattered ruins of forgotten civilizations. Drifting through debris fields where the whispers of the dead still clung to the metal and bone of broken ships, they took what they could, traded when necessary, fought when they had to, survived because there was no other choice, and through it all Vena watched from the edges of their world, keeping her distance until the day everything changed. They found it in the wreckage of a derelict vessel, its name long erased by time. The ship's hull was breached, its corridors filled with the stillness of death, yet something stirred within the shadows, something that did not belong, and when the crew ventured inside seeking salvage and secrets, they found themselves face to face with the impossible. A creature unlike any they had encountered, a thing of shifting forms and liquid darkness, a nightmare given shape. It moved between dimensions, existing in the spaces between reality and nothingness. It was hunger incarnate, and it knew no mercy. The crew fought, but their weapons were useless, their bullets passed through it, their plasma scorched empty air, their blades met nothing but void. One by one they fell, swallowed by the abyss, until only Vena and Kale remained. She could end it, she knew she could. Her bite was death incarnate, her venom an absolute force of destruction, but she had never faced something that did not truly exist, something that was neither alive nor dead, and as she stared into the abyss she wondered if this would be her end. Then Kale stepped forward, his voice steady despite the certainty of doom. He looked at her, and she saw no fear, only trust. And in that moment something shifted deep within her, something she did not understand, something she could not name, but she moved without hesitation, her fangs bared, her purpose clear. She struck, and for the first time in her life her bite did not bring death but life. The creature screamed, the sound rippling through the very fabric of reality. It twisted and writhed as if being torn apart from the inside. And as Vena's venom coursed through its formless body, began to solidify, to take shape, to become something real. And in that moment, it was vulnerable, and Kale did not hesitate. He drove his blade deep into its heart if it had one. And with a final shudder, the nightmare collapsed into nothingness. Silence returned, but it was not the same silence. It was something new, something changed, and as Vena looked at Kale, she knew she was not the only one who had felt it. The ember had become a flame, and there was no turning back. The celestial dawn limped away from the ruins of that forgotten vessel, bearing the scars of what had transpired. Their numbers diminished, but their spirits changed. Vena felt the shift within herself, like a weight lifted, like a curse rewritten. The venom she had always feared now held the power to create, to transform, to defy what had always been true. She was no longer just a bringer of death. She was something else, something new. Kale stood beside her as the stars stretched out before them, endless and waiting. He did not speak, but he did not need to. She understood now that she was not alone, that she never had been, and as the ship carried them forward into the unknown, she felt something she had never allowed herself to before. She felt hope.